recently, Nick, we talked about Prom Night 2, Hello, Mary Lou, another sequel that's kind of unrelated to the original in more ways than one.
Yes.
And it's also a film that maybe borrows more heavily from A Nightmare on Elm Street than it does from its actual source material.
Sound familiar?
So today, we're not going to do that. We're going to get literal here and talk about Slumber Party Massacre 2, a film that follows two characters recasted from the original as they face off against a driller killer who's also kind of a
in your dreams,
monster in your dreams kind of thing. But it was the 80s. These ideas were all in the air. Join us. Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hey everyone, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. You can check out that webpage for other people's critics as well as ours. And today we're going to talk about a staple from 1987. And of course, we talk about Slumber Party Massacre 1. We have to do part 2.
Of course. So Courtney Bates, the younger sister of survivor Valerie, is trying to get over the trauma of her past, but her dreams are filled with memories and an all-new driller killer. When she and her friends go to a condo for a long vacation of band practice and mild-mannered frivolity, Courtney worries that the dream killer might just be real.
5 years difference between 82 and 87 for sequels. That's a big space.
Yes.
And it's a huge gap to the point when I was 10 when this movie came out. I wasn't aware of the first one. I was like, there's a 2? What happened? Almost like Phantasm when I was like, there's a Phantasm 2? Like before I was born? Yes. So, yeah, it has, well, you could probably see a lot of Hello Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. This is entertaining.
Oh yeah, this is by and far my favorite film in this trilogy. I think the first film has a little bit more subtext and a little bit more going on behind the surface, but I cannot deny the absolute
lunacy.
Enjoyment, and lunacy is probably the best word for this rock opera sequel where they jump the shark from being a regular human slasher to a mystical one that gets no real explanation for why. It's bonkers. And it comes in again at that 77-minute mark. Man, the first and second movie in this series, clock in at 2.5 hours. What a great double feature that would make.
Yes. So there's a lot of things that are just amateurish to introduce kind of some bad things are going to happen. For instance, Crystal Bernard, who's, I think she's had more fun in this movie than she should. But if you see a dead bird on the floor, and then on the ground, and then you're like, that's supposed to say something. I don't really know. It's just like you never talk. Of course, talk about what were you looking at? Dead bird. We are weird. I know. It's like that's it.
That's pretty much the movie.
Right.
Thanks for joining us now.
Yeah, see you later.
So Crystal Bernard, I think she's having more fun in 77 minutes than she did in like 8 seasons of Wings. And that's not to slight on Wings. I love Wings.
No, but that was her gag. Is like, I wish I could be anywhere else.
Yes.
On the show.
And the funny thing is that, so she's playing a character that is basically recast from the first film. 2 actresses from the original did not return. Yeah. Courtney and Valerie, the sisters. And I think part of it is that 5 years had passed, and I don't know if they wanted to pass 5 years of movie time for the 5 years of real life time. I also would imagine that it just came down to a thing of these two are now going to be at the forefront, so we're going to get people that are maybe more accustomed to take on these bigger roles. I like Crystal Bernard dealing with, I prefer this idea if she's dealing with past trauma from the first film. Because rarely do we see people come back unscathed, and rarely do we see them have to deal with it in a way that like Sidney Prescott would in the Scream films,
Yeah, it's a little more tortured like Sidney, where Sidney it's a little more palpable. This means it's just a vessel to get it out there.
Yeah.
So it's manifested in her dreams and then comes out of her dreams.
That's what I find so peculiar. Like, there's no explanation really for it. He's just there. And so I have to assume that it's a film about manifesting trauma into real-life horror. But maybe I'm thinking more about it than the actual writer-director did.
Because initially I was thinking, like, is this going to be, like, high tension? She's going to blame it on somebody else, but she's actually doing it. And it's not.
No, he's just there. He's real.
He's just there.
Fun fact, actually, about our driller killer, our musician driller killer, whose name is Adonis Illich, I hope I got that right, is actually the son of the CEO of Little Caesars Pizza.
Yes.
So you have to appreciate
The
that it's
Lilich.
probably a great option for a tie-in for this movie that was never fully realized. But I really liked our driller killer in the movie, too. He doesn't do a lot. He's kind of just there to manifest this over-the-top musician killer aspect.
Yeah.
But
we don't need to see the audition tape. I'm sure what he did in the audition is in the movie.
yeah, I read somewhere that actually they were like contractually obligated. He was like the first person they saw, but they were contractually obligated to see more people. But Deborah Brock, who was the writer-director for the film, just knew that was probably going to be it at the end of the day. And I can't blame her, too, because he's the most memorable part of probably the entire trilogy of films.
Right. He's more... That's the... I like it retains. A lot of it retains. And signature weapon of a good guitar drill at the end.
Talk about a cool weapon, though. I mean, like, it's, again, completely impractical. Is it actually capable of playing music? I don't know. But
it's ridiculous. But like what I critique about absurd, you need some kind of signature thing for people to retain a signature weapon or aesthetic. And he has all of it. I mean, he's doing Andrew Dice Clay with a guitar, singing 50 songs.
When I think this is a movie where execution-wise, it doesn't fully realize what it wants to realize. But this
I understand.
Is a movie I give it all up for the intention of what's being done. Yeah. That makes the film wholly watchable. Is that it's a bonkers. It kind of like leans into like Blood Diner absurdity in some ways, but never fully there. And it embraces the fact that this is what we're trying to accomplish, and what they're trying works better than most movies that succeed.
You have visions of your sister saying, "Don't go all the way." It's so 80s. It's 80s right there. So, came out in October 1987, which is a little late in the game. And I think you're trying to recapture what was happening in the early 80s. You're done. You can't do that. This actually feels more of late 80s than anything else, really. It has all the signatures of late 80s of just amp it up. Music, the teenage girls who need constant vessels, the annoying boyfriends, all the kind of the tropes that we see a lot of saturated in the market at the time.
That's true, and again, it falls into some of the same pratfalls of like a Prom Night 2 and some other films where, again, I'm going to bring it back. I really can't stand this continuing to be done. Last name of Kruger and Voorhees and Bates.
I didn't pay attention very much.
It's referenced in there, and you see it in some of like the behind the scenes like listings and stuff. A lot of last names. They even changed the name of the neighbors from the first film, the one that comes over to protect them. They changed his last name, I think, to Craven. And it's like that's done
right,
so
Craven.
much. We're like, why do you need to do that?
Yeah.
Why do you need to go back and make that? Again, this was the 80s when it was kind of not being done as often, but like so many movies have done it since then that every time I see it now I have to get mad. I'm contractually obligated to get angry.
So it's late 87. You're in the mesh of next year will probably be the best year. Well, I consider the best year, 1988, of horror films of the 80s. But you try not to be lazy, you're trying to be refreshing, but you need that in the movies now.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do something interesting, but you're kind of confined. This is what you need to do. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street, you already did like 4 of them by the time 87, right?
I think 87 was the 4th one, and that's again the one where Freddy Krueger becomes the pop icon. That's the one where he's having fun, and it's almost taking over the whole.
Oh my God, he was hosting MTV. He had his own phone number. He had his action figure. So
I believe that it was 86 to 88, or it was 87 to 89 was Freddy's Nightmares, the 2-season anthology show where he hosted and was kind of our crypt keeper too. So that was 2 seasons, 44 episodes. Find it on Tubi. A great, like really wild series that was done there where again he became the hero. And it was almost like we were recontextualizing our horror icons into a heroic status or an over-the-top status where we were realizing we come to these movies to see the bad guy. You know, we come to see Jason, we come to see Freddy and Michael. And so if you're going to introduce a new driller killer, because you probably can't use the guy from the first
charisma.
one, he's got to have something that pops, you know?
Charisma. And it does a little bit, but no motivation. We don't know why.
Yeah.
Other than
the
you play music
of trauma, if you will. I don't know. I'm not sure where the 50s element comes into play here, but...
Well, it's because that nostalgia piece that we talked about for Night of the Creeps, it's almost this... You got to draw back from the 50s almost, where 50s was the first time horror movies were created for teenagers. So it's almost subconsciously is being pulled in kind of a 50s feel to it.
Yeah.
You got the pastel colors and very simplistic art direction. And then, you know, a lot of fan notoriety of music, all-girl band which is still kind of new and still in the 80s. So,
but it's an embracing of like, what is it? Heidi Kozak's character who plays Sally. She's the musician who writes all the songs, and she's like, when I get this great big hit, like, and that time period where everyone who was a teenager thought they could be famous musicians or famous rock stars, and and now we have that today, I guess, with famous influencers. Everyone thinks they can be that, but it's kind of funny to see like that was that big moment in the late 80s where everyone thought they could do it, and that was how it was treated with the film.
Now, Deborah Brock, did she sell the drill kill thing on eBay?
I don't know.
I looked it up. Apparently, if
she did and we didn't get our hands on it, that's a loss on us.
I've said multiple sources that said that she sold it on eBay for $20,000. She was short of cash. They sold one of them. They made 3 of them. One was just a light, didn't move, just so he can carry around. The other one was actually a practical one. And so they made 3 of them, and she sold one of them for $20,000. If you can find it. Deborah Brock sold one on eBay.
If you're a fan of the show at all and you'd like to see it hanging in the background of episodes, please let us know and send us a check for $21,000.
Yeah, because on the other hand, I did find a lot of people who are willing to remake them, and they sell remakes pretty good.
If I'm at Crypticon this year and I see one of those, that's going to be a problem for me.
So signature weapons. If you want to be a writer and you want to have some kind, you don't criticize about good or bad scripts, but you want people to retain, you have to have signature things into it. Either it's an exaggeration of their weapon or the characters. You need something for people to retain it.
Well, it's so funny too that like this is one of the rare times where a signature weapon has cause for being a signature weapon. When we look at the big 3, when we look at Michael Myers and his knife, we look at Freddy Krueger and his claws, we look at Jason Voorhees and his machete, those 3 killers actually don't use their signature weapon nearly as often as people associate with them. Driller Killer, that's all he's got, man.
Yeah. He's carrying that
not
around.
going to sting you to death.
I think he's taking it to bed. Yeah.
There's space in there for another. Well, I think we looked at, I guess what's really peculiar is that, what was it, Prom Night 2 was also 87.
Yes.
So in that time period, we had 2 1987 films, both of them sequels to previous films that were not supernatural.
From 82.
But they made it supernatural.
Yeah.
And then we had 2 films that also have send-backs to the 50s. One way or the other, that Ghost is either from the 50s or the monsters singing the 50s song.
Yep. We
We have a lot of like comparisons between the 2. It's 2 franchises I never really thought of together. But now having talked about them so recently, I can see so much of a symbiance in that time period of celebration of what came before, but trying to find out what's going to work next.
And so you can see the trend and the fashion of what happened from 82 to 87 that we're not doing subtly anymore.
Yep.
You need to amp up everything. Everything's high octane, and a lot of things are falling by the wayside. You can have silly dialogue. You can have I don't know how many times did in the movie where it's just the camera dead center front and people are talking, almost like they were filming Silence of the Lambs. We're just we're just that just front and center, and you talk. And I don't know how there were so many of that. I stopped at 12. So,
you can have these moments where
very blunt.
What's funny is, Deborah Brock went on to write and direct the sequel to Rock and Roll High School Forever, which I never saw. But
I think they're in the movie, right?
But they actually show the first film on TV, and what's funny about that is the first film I've seen a few times. The song that they're playing during that scene is not in Rock and Roll High School.
No.
So they must have tried to work around it. Maybe they didn't think people would know that it was Rock and Roll High School, but it's very obviously that. And they kind of had to work around, like we probably didn't have the rights to use a Ramones song, so we found another song to use. And then you have this extended dance period where everyone's like dancing choreographed to each other.
Yeah, part of the Charlie Brown and the gang Peanuts, they're all just stationary, standing in one place.
Yeah, the second film really embraces the cliche elements that the first one was kind of trying to subvert. This one's embracing it because, again, like a nude pillow fight, that didn't happen. Didn't happen nearly as often as 80s movies tried to convince us it did.
And then your dad has a liquor cabinet, not like a wine cellar. And then they don't show the booze. It's all of a sudden snacky. So I like the editing is just a little bit awkward. Yeah,
but they like skirt it a little bit here and there where it's like, oh, don't worry, we're moving into it. That's why there's nothing on the walls. There's no paint anywhere. Yeah. And what really was that this was the same set that was used in a horror film called The Nest that was shot there previously about cockroaches invading a home. And it's so funny that they shot The Nest first, and so while filming, they had to contend with an actual roach problem because a bunch of the roaches got out. So, again, behind-the-scenes stories are sometimes more fun than the movie themselves, but having to hide that behind a simple line of like, oh, we're just moving in. You know, it reminds me of that line from Thank You for Smoking, where they're talking about, like, just come up with one simple line that makes up for it.
Makes up for
We're
it.
just moving in.
We're just moving in. That's why you get a very bland art direction. Even Crystal Bernard's bedroom. There's no way a girl's
It's
bedroom
all
is that
focused
bold.
on the lighting, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it really helps, again, when Atnas shows up and is doing his driller killer thing, and these, like, searchlights go on him with the reds and the greens and make him look all ethereal and unusual. And it's because he stands out in a very bland-looking environment because all the focus is
That
on
might be
him.
intentional.
Yeah.
I think she probably wanted... Deborah, I think, is very knows, well, you have to have it quiet for the first 7 minutes, and then the action kicks in, and then that third act, it is just rock and roll all the way through.
Yeah, and see, that's where the big difference is between the first... I feel with Slumber Party Massacre 1, I do feel the weight. In the sequences where we're kind of waiting for our driller killer to show up, I feel the weight of time. Whereas number 2, I almost forget that there's going to be... Like, he shows up so late in the movie, but I don't find anything unentertaining about the first, 50 minutes before he shows up. I find the character interactions to be rather funny. I think there's a stronger chemistry between the girls that are hanging out. And I feel a stronger chemistry between Bernard and Patrick Lowe, who plays Matt.
Yes, right. We talked about Patrick Lowe yet.
Yeah, from Primal Rage.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel that element of them gelling way more in the second film than I do in the first, and it makes me not so concerned about when our killer is going to show up, which makes it all the more fun when he does, because then it's like, oh, here's the icing on the cake, and icing Illich is.
Like, if you can just jump a little bit to the end, with the incarcerated into the loony bin or whatever, but this very German expressionistic. Yeah, it looks like German, like having a Duff to Caligari prison room where the ceiling is almost like a teepee and the drill and everything. I like that aesthetic.
It's peculiar.
It doesn't fit really very well.
What I'm assuming, and this is all my headcanon here, but I'm assuming that Crystal Bernard's Courtney has never gone to visit her sister since she's been incarcerated. The entire film is from her perspective. You know, in that we're seeing like what she thinks her sister's going through.
Yeah.
We're seeing kind of everything really drab because she's seeing that change in time from her own home to this like new place they're moving in. And that's why even if the killer who shows up is an actual real guy, she's envisioning him as an embodiment of her trauma. And it's kind of like, again, her going slowly mad. I don't buy that she's the killer, but I think that she's recreating events in her head as they appear on the film.
Absolutely agree.
I'm assuming. That's just me.
No, but I agree with you that because you don't really see a scene where they're in together.
Yeah.
And if you,
And she purposely tries to avoid seeing her to go hang out with her friends for the weekend.
Yeah.
Which I don't care how close my friends are. If my sister is
in the loony bin,
I'm probably going to go check in on her once in a while. I feel like there's a certain level of concern that she's going to end up the same way. And so she will do anything in her power to dodge or skirt that idea. And ultimately ends up having it happen anyway.
Almost like if she has to confront her sister, that she has to embrace the possibility that she's crazy.
Yeah.
Or rather just avoid that.
She might be falling into the same traps. Yeah. Which I think is a kind of a captivating idea. And your point on Caligari, in my head, I thought it, but I didn't really like emote it out. Like that was a really brilliant comparison.
It took me a second time to watch it.
Is that weird, like triangular crystalline, and then the drill coming out of the floor, which wouldn't happen, like an unreality to the whole thing that I think you're very clever at pointing out.
Yeah, I think you have to, and I watched it twice. I had to watch it to critique it.
You have time. It's a short movie.
And then it's like 70 minutes. But then the second time you just have to decompress and enjoy what you're seeing. It's a far more entertaining movie just to put your brain aside and enjoy what's going on.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those, you mentioned with Trees Lounge, it's not the kind of movie that you want to get your buddies together and have some beer and popcorn and watch. Slumber Party Massacre 2 is absolutely the kind of movie you want to get your friends around.
I was telling people, have you seen this movie right after?
Yeah. It's definitely I don't want to say it's a rite of passage movie, but if you enjoyed the first one, you have to try this one as well. It's available on Shudder currently. If you like the theatrical cut that Shudder has, though, I would advise see if you can get your hands on the Shout Factory edition of the film.
Okay.
Notorious director Dustin Ferguson actually went and re-edited the film together and made an extended cut that's available just on that Shout Factory release.
All right.
I think the extended cut adds a little bit more, not necessary stuff, but it kind of, if you're enjoying the movie, you'll enjoy the extra stuff that's there. Okay. It turns a little bit more of a hangout experience to the whole thing that I think works pretty well in the extended cut. Both cuts work really well, but if you like the theatrical cut, try that one first, and then I would say give that Shout Factory release a try, because it's a pretty cool cut of the film as well.
turn into a murdering music video.
Yeah, it feels like he's got more of a presence in the extended cut. The killer does throughout the earlier portions of the film as well. Like he's kind of, I think he pops in more with those dreams and with those imagery and stuff. And I think it works pretty well as well. Both cuts are great though. Yeah.
But one thing I was looking for, it's very amateurish filmmaking, where the camera sets still and you do these lot of like Jonathan Demme did too.
Yeah.
But he did an aesthetic of just trauma. Here it looks almost awkward. Mm-hmm. And there's even when the driller killer comes out and they're playing with the music instruments. Hey man, do you like? It's just off-camera action is kind of funny. And that's what the
camera is so focused.
Yeah,
you know the scenes where they're practicing the band practice. Like it's almost like if this were going to be a music video, we'd have to set it right here in the center. And then Patrick Lomat walks up to the screen and he's dead center, or when she's dreaming about him, he's walking up shirtless, like right in the center of the frame. And it's like we get what the focus is, man. Like it's there. Thomas Calloway did the cinematography for the film. He later on did a film that I really enjoy from the aughts called Feast, starring the late great Clu Gulager, and directed by his son.
There's a couple other with that
incredible looking film.
Which one is that one?
Feast actually was one of the ones that won Project Greenlight, that Matt Damon Ben Affleck show. That's a great little horror movie, a big splatterfest film that also kind of does the same thing. Calloway is very focused on how do I make what's in the center of the frame be the focus of the narrative, and he's always focused
it's very
on that.
Blunt shot film. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of, unless they're in the car. Even in the car, you get this very mock up for the camera.
Yes. So. But also, did you know too? The film was edited by William Flicker, who did a couple other films I'm not really too aware of, but he did edit one of my favorite shows from the 80s on a regular basis, which when you hear the name, you will know why it's connected to this film, and it's Pee-wee's Playhouse. I get a very Pee-wee's Playhouse vibe from the editing of this film, because it is kind of a little self-aware, loosey-goosey. Not everything makes 100% sense in the editing bay. Things are just kind of on display. And in fact, Pee Wee Herman would show up to set, because he was a friend of Deborah Brock's, would show up to set usually wearing a wig or some sort of getup, and everybody knew it was him.
Yeah, but you got to make the effort, though.
Yeah, so he would show up to set and take care of that. But you can see in the editing bay how the film comes out in kind of a Pee-wee's Playhouse-esque look.
Oh, I try to emphasize when we did Prom Night 2, Mary Lou, is there's not a lot of differences in shooting comedy and shooting horror movies. A little tweak in there, you can make Ferris Bueller into a maniac, psychopathic killer.
Yeah, we'll even look at Pee-wee's Big Adventure, a film that dives into horror a few times. Yeah. There's a certain level of, especially in the 80s too, we could have that horror comedy, because if something didn't work as horror, it takes a few little notches.
Doesn't take much
to become a comedy. And again, if something doesn't work as a comedy, we could make that unreality work towards us. So there was that symbiance, especially in the late 80s, where you have all these low-budget filmmakers, and it's like, how can we make this work one way or the other? I don't care.
Right. So, have you seen Slumber Party Massacre 2? If you have not forgotten you've seen this movie.
No, I really do think it might be a rite of passage for me. Kind of a film. This is one we rented from the local video store the same night we rented the first one. Okay. We binged both of them. Myself, my now wife, a bunch of our friends in this one environment.
But it's almost like renting a comedy.
Yeah, it's an experiential thing, a fun experience that is horror for everybody in some ways. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on Slumber Party Massacre 2. Do you prefer it to the original film? Do you actually like the third one better? I know it's kind of out of print and hard to find, but do you like the third film?
There's a lot of people that don't recognize it as existing.
Yeah.
Including the people
I
making
didn't until recently, and I own it. So, yeah, let us know your thoughts on the film down below, and if we should continue our trek through the world of Slumber Party Massacre. There was a remake last year that actually was pretty well liked by a lot of people.
All right, that's what I heard.
Yeah, so let us know your thoughts on the film down below, and what we should cover next time on Scary Movie Saturday. While you're down there, please like and subscribe. There are 2 things that you can do that don't cost you a single dime, and they'll make sure you never miss new episodes of the show as they drop. And it also helps to engage and give us a little bit more direction on the things that you like and the videos we should cover next time.
Right.
Also, check out down there, as Nick mentioned below, we have that Patreon. Patreon.com/Kyle and Nick on Film. You can join for tiers as low as $1. And that with that $1, you get access to Picks with Kyle and Nick, our monthly show where we do our favorite movies from certain genres, certain elements. We have an exclusive series starting up this month. We're going into the world of Brian De Palma. We're going to cover an exclusive Patreon-only episode.
Yeah.
Brian De Palma directed film as we go on through his filmography, something we really enjoyed from last year we're continuing on with.
Yes.
So please check out those links down in the description. We'll see you guys next time. You can find all my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
You can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts.
Seriously, we got to go on eBay and find that guitar.
I know. We got to get one of them.